I'm Lily Reavis. We're here at the Greensboro Science Center, and I am the life support systems operator and water quality technician here.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. So, y'all, I have recorded intros and outros to podcasts and Zoo News episodes in lots of weird places, including at least one or two that happened on a rolling tour bus over the years. But this might be the strangest one yet, because I am recording this standing on stage at Maine State Music Theater, which is in the state of Maine, and they do musical theater and concerts and stuff, hence the name. And I'm currently here with Great Balls of Fire. We are doing 3 shows here and 2 today on Monday. And I'm between shows right now. And the rest of the guys in the band are downstairs in the green room and are working on their own projects or whistling tunes merrily because, you know, they don't have to record stuff. And so I did all of the editing for this episode. But when it was time to do the intro, I was like, crud, I need to find somewhere kind of quiet and where I can be alone. And I realized no one was actually on stage. So I am set up on Jason's piano, literally with my recording gear and everything, my computer and all on his piano. And I am standing next to my buddy Luke's guitar, and about, 20 feet away from me is my pretty little drum set that I played earlier and will be playing again. And it's just such a lovely reminder of how weird and kind of wonderful my life can be. So, I thought I'd share that one with y'all. But that's not all I'm sharing with you today, as I have, an interview to share with you. And this is the last of the most recent series of interviews from Greensboro Science Center. And it's something I'm really excited to share, not just because it is a cool interview, but it's something we haven't talked about really on the podcast much. So my guest today is Lily Reavis, and she deals with the life support systems at Greensboro Science Center. So we're talking filtration and all of the running water things and lots of stuff in the aquarium, but also stuff in the zoo as well. It's a whole thing. Basically, you're going to learn that flamingos are gross. That's if you had a TLDR for this episode, it would be that flamingos are gross. But yeah, so we're going to talk about all kinds of what goes into filtration and how you keep the water clean and how literally every day is a brand new adventure for Lily. So it's a lot of fun, and I hope y'all enjoy it. Of course, it's an episode from Greensboro, so yes, Becca grabs the microphone at least once, maybe a couple of times, definitely a couple of times. So you'll get some fun John and Becca goofing around in the middle of an interview content, which I know y'all love. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. Don't forget to make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any interview episodes or any episodes of Zoo News. And make sure you're, following along on the socials. At Rossifari on all of those, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine. And of course, you can also support the podcast on Patreon if you would like to, for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. So without further ado, here is my interview with Lily Reavis of Greensboro Science Center. All right. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this, actually, because I haven't had anyone from LSS on yet. Okay. And in the last couple months, I've started volunteering at Aquarium of Niagara, and seeing the ridiculous amount of life support and what goes into it all is pretty intense. So I think this is a really cool, really unique way of looking at zoos and aquariums in a way that we haven't had a chance to yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited about that. I am curious, what the heck got you into life support systems?
Yeah, I'm also very curious how I got here. It's not like I just hopped in. No one really told me about life support like in school or anything. I used to be an aquarist and a keeper at a non-AZA facility. And I really enjoyed it and it was great. And then COVID hit and things got really rough. And I was also starting to work on building my family. I had to do treatments and stuff. So I kind of left the field for a little bit, worked in the lab. And I found myself, I was in southern Georgia, northern Florida kind of area. And I was being a stay-at-home mom, and I'm it's not for me. I need my brain to be stimulated in a little bit of a different way. So I was looking for jobs at, facilities like this, AZA kind of things. And I stumbled upon the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens.
Love the Jacksonville Zoo.
There.
Yes.
People are the best, too.
They are.
So I saw they had a life support position open that was part-time. And I was like, well, I've plumbed a few things as an aquarist. Maybe I could do this. And my old supervisor gave me the chance, and I didn't realize how much I loved it until I got there. I literally walked in my first day, and I was looking at all the equipment, and I was I can't believe I just signed up for this. This is scary. And then the longer I was there, the more hit me oh, I actually enjoy this. I love the way to the thought process of doing the job. So I just kind of fell into my lap at the perfect time. Honestly, I feel my timing's been really good with these jobs. When I left there and came here, this is the first life support position open at the Science Center. They've never had one of me here before. So everything kind of worked out perfectly for me to be here in this position and in this place too.
That's awesome. I love that. Before we go much further, we should probably explain what exactly we're talking about with life support systems, what that means, what that doesn't mean, especially because it's not just aquarium. I'm guessing most people listening are thinking making sure that fish stay alive,
mm-hmm.
but it is in the zoo as well. So go ahead and talk about that.
So life support it's the pumps, it's the motors, it's the sand filters, it's any kind of filtration, all the pipes, all plumbing, sterilization, disinfection of the water as well. It's everything keeping all the water from the aquarium to the hippos clean, clear, and safe for the animals.
Okay, cool. So, so clean water seems important. That's really cool. And that also includes, you touched on this, but for people that haven't been to the center, when you're talking about water for hippos and stuff, it's not even just the pool, but it's like the stream going through the exhibit and stuff like that. So there is a lot of variety amongst these different systems, right?
Yeah. Everyone's different. Even from different facilities, I've seen exhibits plumbed completely differently, the order of filtration. It's there's no 1 + 1 = 2, A, B, C for life support. It's kind of anything and everything. There's a lot of different pieces of equipment you can use in different ways also. So it's every aspect of the exhibit and the equipment we have.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, you mentioned that you were a keeper before getting into this. Mm-hmm. What kind of animals were you working with?
So I was in Charlotte at Discovery Place Science, and I worked on both dry and wet side. We did a little bit of everything there. So I worked with we had a great Pacific octopus. I don't know exactly what they have there anymore, but she was the best. And I worked with iguanas, birds. I've worked with a little bit of everything. We had a big monitor lizard there, lots of reptiles, a little bit of everything.
That's really cool. Do you miss the keeping side of things?
I do. It's being hands-on was always so fun. And I love doing water changes also with the fish and everything, having your relationships with the animals. But I also really enjoy the aspect, especially here and even when I was back in my own facilities. When you're in life support, I'm very animal adjacent and I see every animal basically. I was just at tigers and fishing cat and I was all over the place today, and I wouldn't really be doing that if I was just in the aquarium or just out in the zoo. I get to see every part of this facility basically every single day. So while I do miss the animals and being close with them, I enjoy this, I think, just as much.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That's very cool. So, I have so many questions, but one of the first things that I'm thinking about is just in terms of what you were just talking about. So you go to all these different exhibits, you go to the aquarium, you go to the zoo, whatever. Mm-hmm. How much coordination does that take? Since you're not a keeper, you know, what kind of teamwork does it take for you to be able to do your job?
Yeah, so I update the keepers at least once a week. I'm in touch with everybody basically kind of all the time. If there's ever a problem, everyone can just reach out to me. I send out like weekly emails with all my updates of like what's going on, what I've been doing behind the scenes kind of with them. And every week I also do get onto the exhibits. In the zoo, it's a little bit harder because I'm not about to walk onto the exhibit with the fishing cat or the hippos. So I am in touch with them like when I'm going on exhibit, when I'm off exhibit. If there's, ever an emergency, I'm always like with somebody. So I do get in touch with people before I can really do anything on exhibit. But all of my equipment is actually behind the scenes, like in my own rooms, which I have complete access to anytime. If I need to shut off a system, like if, let's say, there's a leak somewhere and I had to shut the system off so my pumps don't run dry and explode, I'm going to go in back, turn off some switches, and we're good. I don't need to get on exhibit. And if there's something on exhibit, definitely have to get help, though.
Okay. Wow. So it sounds like everything's set up with you having a lot of independence and ability to do what you need to do.
Yes, exactly.
That's very cool. So, one of the things I love to ask is obviously, even though you're not working directly with them, you are at a place with a bunch of amazing animals. So what are your faves here?
My favorites here, I'd probably say like in the aquarium, the Prickles. The puffer, I mean, he's just so sassy. He's just always like around. I just think he's so funny. Oh my gosh, in the zoo, I have to say Huckleberry. I mean, how could I not?
I mean, Huck's amazing. Yeah.
Such a cutie. Yeah. Like one of the best days ever was when I was Mike let me like feed all of them one day, and I was just like, oh, they're just so cute.
And just in case anybody, this is your first time listening to one of the episodes from Greensboro, Huckleberry is a pygmy hippo and is absolutely adorable. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So I noticed that the animals that you like seem to be ones that you do a lot of LSS work with. So yeah. Does it make you feel like more like you have a relationship with them, or like they're more important to you because you are taking care of them?
I guess that could, I could have an underlying bias, because those are, the puffer fish is in one of our biggest exhibits, the biggest exhibit in the aquarium. So I'm over there quite often. I see it every day. I walk by it multiple times a day. Yeah, they all have so much personality. Other fish don't have as much. They all do. I feel like all animals do have some kind of personality, but I am seeing these also the most.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Hi, this is Kathy Hill from the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. We're all about restoration projects in progress this season on One Lagoon, One Voice. Learn about the great strides the lagoon community is taking to restore and protect the Indian River Lagoon. Each week, we dive deep into discussions with scientists, resource managers, and nonprofit leaders to explore lagoon issues and solutions. From oyster reefs to clam restoration, algae blooms to muck, you'll learn all about the projects we're tackling to bring the Indian River Lagoon back to health. Click the link in the show notes to follow One Lagoon, One Voice, learn about the IRL Council, and explore our unique lagoon.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about what your normal day is like. Let's talk about what you do with these systems. Okay. And I really don't know. So explain it to a baby.
Okay. So I come in here every morning and I will kind of walk in, make sure there's no emergencies, check my email real fast. And then I start my day with my morning rounds. So I will go around I usually check our shark reef exhibits, life support first, my ozone system. That's really important that that's all working. And then I'll kind of walk around the aquarium, go to my life support room in there, make sure all the ozone looks good. My levels are right. Water levels are all consistent and good as they need to be. Then I make my way out to the zoo. I usually start down at the Flamingo exhibit just because they're dirty. I want to make sure I get them clean as fast as possible.
They are so dirty.
I have an intern. I've my first intern here.
Nice.
And she's fantastic. Love her. And man, the flamingo smell, she was shocked. And I was like, man, I agree. She's like, I've been smelling flamingo all day, every day. And I'm like, it hits you really hard some days. So I make sure I get them cleaned up first. So when I walk into my Flamingo life support room, once I've got my indoor exhibits life support, the other side is my outdoor life support exhibit. They each have sand filters and ozone on them. So I walk in, make sure the pressure on my sand filters is good, and I also check the flow for the exhibit, and I check my ozone's numbers as well. And I usually end up doing a backwash on my indoor system. So a backwash is basically I'm cleaning the sand filter. Kind of like if you have a pool at home, you have to keep your pool filter clean also, otherwise you're not going to have clean water. So I'll backwash it, make sure it's clean, and then I'll move on to fishing cat. also that one has a sand filter and UV sterilizer instead of ozone, which is a different way of disinfecting the water. And then I head up to Hippo. Again, they have sand filters, ozone. That one has drum filters as well, which is like manually taking like hay, debris, all that junk out of the exhibit. So I'm just making sure nothing's clogged, all my pressures are good. And I come back to the aquarium and I do water quality for a few hours. Then I go to lunch, I come back, evening projects, evening backwashes, evening water quality, and then I kind of head home after doing some evening checks. So a lot of just checking, making sure all my equipment's working well. I do find leaks, I do find problems, and I have to make time to fix them as well. So that's kind of what my day is, but it changes a little bit every day as well. Like if I find a problem somewhere, I have to make that a priority then.
There's enough here for this to be your full-time job and have an intern now.
Yes.
That's amazing. Wow. And I'm curious. So I do some water quality stuff at the aquarium, and it is so like, I'm like, look at me, I'm doing chemistry. Woo! How in depth is what you do here, and like how much of it is done by the systems and how much of it is you actually like taking water samples and doing chemistry?
Yeah, so we have a lot of like sensors on systems, not really a ton of like water quality sensors. Like I have Hippo, for example, I have a water level sensor. So if the water level drops, I need to know because there are fish in that exhibit.
Right.
And there's a few of those on other systems, temperature probes on other systems, but every day I check bromines first. That is a residual oxidant of ozone, making sure my ozone's in check, not too high, not too low. That could be dangerous to the fish, so I check that immediately every single day. That's the most important. And then I check a different gallery every single day also. So today is Friday. I checked all the quarantine galleries, water quality. So that is salinity, pH, ammonia, and nitrites. And then I also, corals checked every single day. So it kind of varies on each system also. Not every system needs to be checked every day. Corals, I'm checking every single day for calcium and alkalinity as well, and pH. So a lot of it just depends on the system, depends on the aquarist, how much they want to know about their systems also. Like the coral aquarist needs to know way more than person working on Amazon, possibly. So I have an idea of what all the water quality should be for these exhibits. I know it's freshwater, what's saltwater. I know if there's a system being dosed with copper, which is what they use in quarantine to kill external parasites.
Okay.
So there are some things I need to know, but I don't have a super in-depth knowledge of every single exhibit just because there's so many and I can't know all that. So I'm looking out for like irregularities in the water quality, but then also the aquarists will come and double check all their stuff and dose as needed and do all of their system stuff. I'm hands off of their exhibits, but I do their water quality for them. It takes like 2 hours sometimes every single day. There's plenty to do. And lots of other tests I'm sure I'm missing also, but pretty in depth.
Makes sense. Yeah. Can you explain to the listeners like what you actually do as far as when you're testing for pH or chlorine or salinity? You know, I know there are different ways to do that, but walk us through just a few of the tests that you do regularly.
Yeah. So for testing for pH, I've got a Hawk probe, and I will calibrate it every single day, make sure my equipment's working properly, I'm getting the right readings. And then I just kind of put the probe in a water sample. The aquarists typically can collect their own water samples. They're in these little jugs of water. And I will just test it with the probe. Another one's like kind of chlorine. Again, it's a lot like testing pools. There's a DPD test. I would say that name, but it's very hard. I'm going to definitely say it wrong. It does stand for something scientific.
Something nerdy. Yes.
Yeah, something very nerdy. And I will say it wrong, but I know what it stands for. I can see it in my head. Basically what happens is I have a spectrophotometer, and what that thing does is basically I will put reagents into my samples. It will change the color of the samples, specifically for a chlorine test. It will go from clear to pink, and if it gets super pink, it means that there's a lot of chlorine or a lot of a certain chemical in the water. The spectrophotometer will be able to tell the exact change of like, oh, this was your sample, and now after putting the reagent in it, you've changed this much in the color. And it will give me a number for that. So I can know, oh my gosh, I need to dose this with some sodium thiosulfate to cancel out the chlorine or something. So that's kind of what I would do. Like for a chlorine or a bromine test, they're kind of the same thing, just using different programs on the Hawk. Salinity, I'm just using we use a digital refractometer for that.
That's cool. We have an analog one at Aquarium of Niagara.
It's hard.
So you have to, light. Yes. So literally what you do is you take a sample of the water for those listening, and you put a little bit of it on this little like slide on a telescope, basically, is what it looks like. And you look up at the light and you have to have it perfectly evenly balanced. And then it shows the level of salinity. And I feel like a pirate every time I'm doing it.
I was like, close one eye. I'm like, is this a better light over here?
Yeah.
So the digital one makes it much easier.
I'm jealous right now.
So it's very nice. Yeah. I'd never seen one until I got here and I was like, whoa, we're fancy here. Another big thing that I test for is I do Terra Alert testing every month on different exhibits. We do have a dive program here, which is great and fantastic. I cannot let divers get into water that is gross. It tests for enterococci bacteria, and divers can't get in if there's a certain level of that in the water. So I test for that on exhibits that are dived in. This month I tested for penguins, otters, Amazon, and shark reef, corals, and mangroves. And they were all fine, but I just tested to make sure that our divers are safe when they're putting their face underneath the water as well. And that's a pretty big one.
Very cool. And so how do you learn all of this stuff? Like, I know that you got the hands-on experience.
Yeah.
I know that. But then you come to a new facility with a bunch of buildings, each one of which has one or multiple LSS going through it. Yeah. How do you learn it? How universal is it? How unique to GSC is it?
The water quality or just life support, everything?
No, life support in general, like the setup that you walk into. Like your first day here, right? So you come from Jacksonville and you're like, I am now the life support system person. Like I am the person. And you walk in, are you instantly like, oh, cool. All right. So there's my, hatch chemicals. And here is, this is the same thing that I saw at Jacksonville. Or do you walk in and you're like, oh,
it takes you back for a minute. Everything looks so different here. And also I'm coming from the zoo where everything was outdoors. Like if I spilled water on the ground, I didn't care. I didn't have to clean it up. Here I'm like, oh no, let me grab a squeegee. So it took me back for a second, but if you can follow your water flow, you can kind of do anything here, I feel. That's a big thing that I try to teach if I'm teaching somebody. Especially if I was leaving my last job, I was training new people to follow behind me. If you can follow your water and know if you turn a valve, that's going to stop your flow here. I can kind of figure anything out. I think a big part of life support is the thought process behind it. I tell people, I think that life support is a state of mind. It is. And I feel one day I definitely came to life support consciousness. I remember being at my old job and I was like, oh my God, I know what this does right here now. I can look at the blueprint, I can follow it. But it's just a whole different thought process where it's like, I'm taking it back for a second. But I'm like, let me ground myself. I'm here. This goes there. And I can figure it out. It's just a lot about taking a step back. If I'm going to turn one valve, it's going to affect who knows what down the line. If I turn a valve at Shark Reef, that could affect everything. I could break things so easily. So it's just really taking your time, thinking it through. That's the best part about life support. It's just troubleshooting, thinking your way through things. That's why I love it so much, I think. So it's hard, but it's also hard in the best kind of way.
Right. Mm-hmm. This is going to sound like such a weird question, I think, but it's a valid one. Are there instruction manuals? Are there things that you can look up? Because I just moved into a new place.
Okay.
And have been doing a bunch of setting up of stuff and tracking of things and everything. Mm-hmm. And literally appliances now are to the point where they just have a QR code and you scan and it takes you right to the book and you just go, boop, okay, that's how that works and I understand. And I've never been a very handy person, but at this new place, I've actually done a bunch of handiwork because it's now so idiot proof that even as somebody who used to be afraid of Home Depot, literally, I'm not exaggerating, I would get nervous walking in there. Now I'm just like, this is fine. Everything is fine. I don't have to think. I just have to scan a QR code and do
use my part number I got here. It's foolproof.
It's even better than that. They even have pictures that move and stuff now.
That's amazing.
You can actually see the diagrams on your phone and they move this goes like this goes like that. I'm like, okay, cool.
I haven't seen that for life support, but I can't tell you how much time I've spent reading manuals. It is horrible, but also it's you can read a manual and you can learn so much from it, but everything is plumbed differently where you go. At my old job, things would be your sand filter, then your protein skimmer, then other filtration. Here, it starts with a protein skimmer on most systems. Sometimes there's not even a sand filter. Life support can be used in so many different ways and different orders. So yes, I can tell what each piece of filtration does and how it works. But again, it's kind of like looking at the whole picture. It's like I have to like step back, look at the big picture of like, where's my flow going to? So there's manuals for each piece of equipment, but there's no like big manual like, oh, there should be. I know that we have SOPs that we've all written here. And when I walked in, they were already written, thank goodness. But at my old job, I was putting those all together. I was writing SOPs on how to calibrate probes, how to do backwashes, how to do basic maintenance, how to do any preventative maintenance that we do monthly, weekly, yearly. It can be written down. It's just a lot, and not everyone always has it written down. So here, luckily, they're fantastic. When I walked in, there's a ton of stuff, like instructions written out for me. That's not how it is everywhere, but it should be.
No, that makes sense. That's cool. Okay, so you mentioned the different kinds of filtration, and I know that filtration is a huge part of life support.
Yeah.
So can you talk through, you've mentioned there's a sand filter and there's other filters. Can you talk through some of the most common ones and like what they do?
Yeah. So the most common one I would say is probably the sand filter. And it's like on a pool, your water goes in and the sand kind of catches and hold on to like a bunch of like the debris, gross junk that you don't want in, and then clean water comes out. And then when it's dirty, you'll usually see a difference in your PSI, your pressure on your sand filter. Let's say my sand filter I just set it up. It's clean. It's beautiful. It's perfect. I turn it on. My pressure is 5 PSI. It's running. That's it. It's running every single day. When it starts getting like gunked up and gross, the PSI will raise. And when it's at like, let's say 13 to 15 kind of PSI, I'll do a backwash. I usually do a backwash when I see a 7 to 10 PSI pressure differential on my sand filter. And what backwash does is basically it reverses flow and it pushes all that junk out the top and out a waistline.
Okay.
So that is number one, super basic. And another thing with all these filters too, it's like, yeah, I have a sand filter, but then I could use different media in it. A big thing these days is glass media. People use bead filters. It's kind of similar, but it's got bigger pieces of material. So I have my sand filter, but you could use it in different ways too. I've seen some people put carbon in it as well. Protein skimmers are another super common filtration method I've seen. You can really only use it like on salt water. It doesn't work on freshwater exhibits. And what it does basically, it's kind of like the ocean, how you go to the beach and you see all of the foam on the sand. You think it's great. That's actually like a bunch of waste just being removed from the ocean. It's really gross and dirty. Or if you're in a hot tub and you see all the bubbles, please avoid them. It's disgusting.
Great.
Yeah. So next time you get in a hot tub, just make sure it's not super foamy and it's like, ugh. Anyways.
I should never.
You shouldn't be here.
I should never have sat into this one. I'm never getting into any body of water again. At
my last facility, we had a splash park for kids, and I had to be a certified pool operator. So I had to like learn all about that. And the guy teaching the class is like, "Oh yeah, hot tubs, that's people soup." And I was like, "I will never look at a hot tub the same way again." Yeah, it's like all the foam that builds up like in a protein skimmer, it will lift all the debris kind of out, just like foam being removed from the ocean or foam at the top of your hot tub. It's really gross. Stay out of it.
And so it literally just foams the stuff up,
so
and then all the dirty stuff goes up to the top?
Yes, there are different like pumps. So I have like the one I'm thinking about right now, I have ozone or air also like kind of being injected into the system as well. And that kind of helps like get the bubbles made and like have it lifting up and out. It's kind of hard to explain. I think I'm not explaining it well. But it's also called like a foam fractionator also. So you have to like get it bubbling, get the foam to get all the junk out.
And then once the foam is there, you skim it off, and that's why it's called a protein skimmer?
Yeah, it just like kind of comes, yeah, exactly. It just kind of comes out. It's kind of, there's like a cone shape, and it just kind of comes at the top and out the sides, and I'll have like a spray down or something in there, connect to a waistline. I'll just spray down all the foam, and it'll go right out the waistline. Something I love is ozone. It's a form of disinfection of my water, for sterilization. And I used to work on ozone that had plasma blocks, and I feel this is the easiest way to explain it, is ozone is like what makes like the water like really blue in certain like exhibits, really clean, really blue, really helps with like turbidity, making your water super clear, breaking down a bunch of like little debris and gross stuff. So at my old facility, I had a block, basically it was like a metal looked like a piece of metal, and it had 2 ceramic plates on it, and then that was inside of like a block. And what would happen is like electricity would kind of like shoot through it, and it would excite oxygen that was like flowing through it, and then it would excite it into O3 to ozone. And then I inject it into the water to sterilize and clean my water. We also have UV sterilizers, which uses a UV bulb to kill like different like bacteria, different viruses and stuff like that. And that also helps like clear up the water a lot. I'm trying to think what else kind of like filtration we have here, but it's really like sand filters and like protein tumors, like such like the bread and butter. People use like socks, like the little filter bags. That's super common as well, just for catching debris and getting it out of the water. I think those are like the biggest things I can think of. Cool.
That makes a lot of sense. And do you use just like one per exhibit, or do you like string them together to get the different effects? How does that work?
You definitely can use all different kinds. I've seen it used in like many different ways, but here we have multiple different forms of filtration on exhibits. Like Flamingos has a sand filter. Indoor has a cyclone, which is a little tube that like catches kind of heavier debris also. It's like an extra form of filtration. My pumps have little filter baskets in them, which also catch debris. So there's a bunch of different methods on each exhibit. It's very rare to find just one filtration method on an exhibit, I feel.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
What if I told you scientists discovered 100 new species in the deep ocean?
Why did crocodiles survive extinction?
Megalodon. How did it go extinct?
Hey, it's me, Forrest Galante, wildlife biologist. You might know me from Joe Rogan's podcast or my various TV shows like Extinct or Alive and Shark Week. Join me and my friends as we dive into the wild world of animal anomalies and everything wildlife. Don't miss out. Click here to uncover these mind-blowing animal mysteries.
Makes sense. And I'm kind of curious. So as an expert on this stuff, your eyebrows shot up really high when I said that, but you are literally, this is your job. What do you think about, I know that there are a lot of pets that have like small filtration-y stuff, and people get like turtles and aquariums and stuff like that. And what are your thoughts on like that kind of filtration versus like for those pets versus what works at a place like here?
It's on such like a different scale. And it just depends like on like who's keeping up with it also. Like if you're not keeping up with your water changes, your filtration will not save you. If your water's just gross and you're refiltering gross water, like it just depends on like your upkeep. I mean, you can totally make it work on any scale. I mean, if you can't put a gigantic ozone unit on your fish tank, it's totally fine. I think it's adapting it to what your system needs. You can do anything, honestly, as long as you're also keeping up with the water quality. Your numbers will tell you everything that you need.
Yes, I'm sure most pet owners are checking their water quality regularly.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day, especially
cough,
on
cough.
the fish and the turtles. Nasty water.
Dude, water turtles, I have had sliders and stuff, and oh my God. Yeah, it dirty.
Very dirty.
It is very dirty. Yeah, okay. So how does your job here report to people? Like, who do you answer to? Who's looking out to make sure that you're doing the thing?
I am under the aquarium, so I'm under Sarah Halbrand. She's the curator of the aquarium, so she's like my person I go right to. But I'm also like in touch with everyone on the zoo side as well. But Sarah is my direct check. I also, Lissa, she was doing life support before I got here. I also check in with her all the time. It's nice to have kind of a hive mind sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, but I am technically under the aquarium, but I am also in the zoo kind of half the day.
Right.
But Sarah's my direct person.
Okay, cool. So tell me a story of just like something that went wrong. It could be here, it could be Jacksonville. You don't have to say where it was, like things go wrong. We understand that,
There's
but whatever.
So many instances of that.
And where you had to like problem solve and like take me through it. Like I do this with vets all the time.
Yeah.
Like tell me a case study. So I want you to give me a case study.
Oh goodness. That might take me like a second.
Take your time.
There's been so many things to go wrong.
You're good. Take your time.
Well, I think, do you mind if I head to the bathroom real quick?
Nope, that's fine.
I'm taking that off. I don't want you guys recording that.
John and I can take a recording break.
Ooh, fun.
Why do I let you do this?
I actually...
Turning into your podcast.
It is. I actually don't know why you let me do this, but I do think that Lily's onto something, and I think that we should do a podcast together, John. I don't know what we would call it. I don't know what we would talk about, but I think that between the two of us, we could definitely do something that would be pretty popular with people.
I agree. I think what it would be, I think the theme would be me coming up with ideas and you derailing them.
That's a great, I mean, that's like genuinely, that's a great idea for a podcast. I mean, you know, it's just a couple people talking, some friends talking. I feel like there's a couple of podcasts like that. It's like the something on the left. I can't remember what it's called. Do you know the podcast on the left or something?
Sure.
You don't know that one?
I don't know the one that you just made up and don't know the name of. No, I don't.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Okay. And then, you know, like, other than the Rossifari podcast, my other favorite podcast is just called Lore. It's about folklore.
That makes sense.
People ask me what it's about all the time, and I feel so bad whenever they're like, oh, what's it about? And I'm like, folklore.
You know what we should do?
What?
We should start a podcast called Lore, but it'll be L-U-R-E. And
Lore.
it will be about fishing, but folklore. Like only water-based folklore.
Like
Like mermaids and stuff.
Sirens,
Yes.
the Loch Ness Monster.
Yes.
The sinking of the Titanic. Wait. The Bermuda Triangle.
Yes. Yeah.
I actually love that idea. When are we going to start?
We've got the gear. We can do it whenever.
We do.
Yeah. I one of my friends who is a big fan of the podcast was telling me they were talking to someone recently, and they were like, you know, fictional animals like narwhals. And they were like, no, narwhals
are real.
Are real. And it was a thing. And so we could do an episode of Lore dedicated to narwhal.
Which are genuinely real. I mean, you know, they're like the unicorns of the sea.
Yes.
But they're like real unicorns. Okay, I'm giving you back, Lily.
Okay.
Nice little break. I did think of something though.
We need a derail theme song.
Perfect.
You should just play some elevator music. Be like, it's time for a break. A little break.
All right.
Okay. So I used to work with manatees, and they had a ton. There was a big 60,000 gallon exhibit, and the ozone just like stopped working one day. The water turned like green, like dark green. It was really gross, and there was really no protocol like written there for what to do if ozone goes down and you can't see your manatees. They're just doing a ton of backwashes like multiple times a day, but you can't like station them there all day long, and you also can't be dumping city fresh water into a manatee exhibit because it's kind of highly chlorinated, and I don't want to do that. So what we would do is we came up with a different water change protocol. Me and my old coworker Caitlin, who's the best at the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens, I have to give her a little shout out. We made a whole protocol on how to deal with that. So in place of ozone, we did dose the exhibit with chlorine, but we had to closely watch it. So we had to get the water quality team involved because the water quality team and the life support team are two different people. Here, I kind of do it all. So I kind of know what I'm doing all the time. I know I can put this in this exhibit, or I can tell someone to put this in this exhibit because I know the levels. I didn't know what was going on. They had like a little pool test kit. So I was like, maybe let's get a water table, bring it back to the beautiful equipment that we have here. So we came up with the whole protocol and like how we could use chlorine and dosing it with a little pump and everything, keeping it within the USDA levels because manatees are under the USDA. Mm-hmm. And we got to be able to see our manatees again. The water was beautiful and clear until we got our equipment fixed. So I was like kind of an example of how using like chemicals and using your filtration to the best of your ability when part of your system goes down.
Cool. That is a really neat example. And I'm glad that you could see your manatees because it's good to see manatees. They're very, very cute. Mm-hmm. Yes. And the manatee rescue and rehab program at Jacksonville is really cool.
They got babies right after I left.
No.
I was so upset. I was like, you couldn't have gotten here a little earlier. But they have the best stuff, best people there.
Yeah, awesome facility. So, you know, I'm curious if this job applies to like any other aspects of your life, because you said it's like a thought process more than almost anything else. So do you find that doing this work impacts you in other ways at other places, etc.?
I feel so handy when I'm here. Like, I could take apart a pump, I could replace a mechanical seal, I could do all this cool fun stuff. And then I get home and I just like put holes in the wall sometimes when I'm just like trying to like hang things up. I don't know what I'm doing. This job gives me confidence.
Okay.
I can do a lot more. Like now I know like, how to like read through a manual and like I can fix stuff. I can definitely do more. And this job has a lot of like troubleshooting in it. So I feel like this has taught me a lot of like, something's wrong. I don't need to immediately like call. I can maybe try to call somebody. I can maybe try to figure it out myself or take a step back, look at the bigger picture, like, hey, what's causing a problem? I feel that could be applied anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So do you feel any strong connection to conservation or anything like that since you're at a place, like the Greensboro Science Center, even though you're not like interacting directly with animals, but then also you are because you're taking care of them and, all that stuff?
I really believe in having like ambassadors like for species and like, we're in North Carolina. I can't just like go to the beach, right? I mean, I could go to the beach, but I don't live super close. I don't have these animals. I'm like, I can't go anywhere. Well, never mind. I believe in having ambassador species so people can have like more empathy towards animals. Like it feels real when I'm looking at a tortoise and they're really cute and I want to go touch them, but I can't. I feel like it helps you see, like, this is real. This is like out in the world. It's not just me in my city driving down the road with trash next to me. It's like, no, there are other animals that call this place home and we're affecting that. And I feel like it can like open people's eyes. Like, I feel like I was raised around animals my whole life and I have such a different outlook on like other people, other species, other everything. I feel like that's super important to have for everybody. So I definitely believe in that. And then also conservation. My dad breeds rare endangered species of tortoises. So it's always been a really big thing for me is that he specifically breeds, one of his is spider tortoises.
Oh,
they're
my
from
gosh.
Madagascar.
Yeah. I love spider tortoises.
He's like, I'll joke up with him. He breeds them and he's really good at it. And to me, I'm like, so like when I was young, I'm like, he's just a bunch of turtles, tortoises, like whatever. And then as I got older, I'm like, this is a big deal. Madagascar is, being destroyed. So they don't have a place to call home. It's like, we need people like this doing this work. Otherwise they won't be here anymore. Like they will literally be wiped off the earth, which is a crazy thing to think about. Like, they're just gone forever. So yeah, it's like really important. It's always been around me and my family, especially too.
That's really cool. That's yeah. I think it's important to pass that along. And I find that is true in families. And already my son, who is 9, is very interested in, red pandas and he's gotten to meet a red panda and a sea lion and he's had some other cool experiences. And, I've literally seen him like talk to kids and be like, oh no, you can't have that animal as a pet. Yeah. It's endangered, whatever. And he in school this year got to do a presentation on anything he wanted to. And he talked about the endangered red panda and what that means. And I was like, well, I guess I'm doing something right.
Yeah. So, I bring my son here all the time. He's like 2, almost 2.5. And just like watch him go, like he'll be in the butterfly garden. He's like, that's butterfly. He's like pointing out what he knows not to touch it or hurt it. And like, he's like, I want to go see fishies. I'm like, it's nice seeing him have an interest in this as well. Just because like this is his world too. Mm-hmm. Like, what other parts of his world looks like that he can't see right now or he can't go to right now. So I love it.
That's very cool. Here. Yeah. No, that is very cool. Did you ever feel inspired by nature in terms of your job? And what I mean by that, because that's a terrible phrasing on my part, but what I mean by that is like, there are natural systems to clean the natural water in the natural world and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't always work real well. See the Ganges. But, in general, like there are things like that. So do you ever try to equate what is going on in your systems to the real world or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, just to get my systems to function, like I'm telling you, like some of my filters can't work with certain different kinds of water. My protein skimmer won't work with fresh water. So I have to like think, it's seawater will work with this kind of filtration. And that's always like the goal is to like get the animals to be in, a home that's as much like theirs as possible. Mm-hmm. So I'm always, check my salinity, check my pH. I want it to be like their water. I don't want a stingray in, brackish water. So, I'm always looking at like, what is it actually like for them? How can we replicate that? For me, it's from my water filtration, it's from my parameters. That's what I do. Yeah, always.
Very cool. And then the biodome is going to be opening here soon. Yes. Going to start being built and stuff. I assume there will be some life support systems in there. What kind of input are you having on that?
Yeah, A little bit here and there. Like I've been brought into rooms, especially my curator, just like get like little ideas and stuff. I don't really have final say, and I haven't really been a part of a project like this before. So for me, it's also like I'm learning a lot from this process. Like, oh, what are we going to need? How do we go about this? So it's kind of like, yeah, I can give you my input as a life support operator, but also I'm taking a lot from it myself to like, oh, this is how this kind of planning work.
That's cool. No, that's
Not
good.
much,
Yeah,
but a little bit.
But you're getting
I like
some. That's cool.
They're listening to me, and that like the fact that I'm even brought to the table at some point is a really big deal because at other facilities, sport operators aren't. And sometimes I remember talking to somebody about a project that I won't name, but they were having some like crazy life support. Like the people that are building are obviously not operators, and they would never build it like that. So, and they wouldn't even bring the team to the table to talk about anything, about any concerns. So it's like if I'm working on it every single day and you build it weird and I could have been there at the table saying, hey, personally, like, here's my concern. I mean, you're just kind of given whatever is there. And if you could have had a say in it, it could have really made a big difference for everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's a big deal. In fact, even just to be brought to the table every once in a while, I'm happy.
Very cool. Are there any conservation organizations you'd like to give a shout out to?
I always have to do Turtle Survival Alliance, the TSA.
Amazing. Yes, love TSA.
They're fantastic. That's all I've got, though.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Poop.
That's the whole story.
Just poop. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to think.
You've got two really good sound bites of poo.
Don't ever use that.
No, I think you should. And then also
don't.
just Connor going, I have a lot of poop in my life.
Yeah, that was really funny too.
It's like every day I'm surrounded by poop. It doesn't even bother me anymore.
Well, right. This is for the audience that isn't surrounded.
No,
by
yeah.
people. You know what I mean?
I was at my old facility and I was trying to fix filtration. So basically the way that it was built, it gave uneven flow to my sand filters, which is a huge problem. It flipped my media in one of my filters. That media was glass media, so you're supposed to be able to reuse it. Everyone was telling me I could just rinse it off and use it. But it was like coated in capybara poop, which is like incredibly, it's like everything was just stuck together. So I spent days, hours, every single day over a bucket with a hose, just rinsing it off. I'll always spray it in my face because there's no other way to use a hose.
Of course. Other
than spraying it in my face every single time. But that's probably, as life support, that's pretty gross.
I mean, yeah, capybara poop to the face is pretty gross.
I used to also on our manatee system, there we had just a bag full of poop that would come from the drum filters, full of poop, and you'd have to pick it up and like carry it down to the garbage pail. We really had a poor system. And I hope that one day someone can figure out how to fix it because we just never thought of a better way, I guess. And sometimes it would break because it was just an old laundry bag and just break on you.
Oh my God.
I think it's not as bad as like keepers, but from life support, we're pretty gross too. I just always have my hands in it.
Yeah, that's pretty gross.
I don't know, when Lisa was over LSS, I literally went into her office and like, I came in through like where the gift shop is.
She smelled?
And no, she smelled like, I couldn't even explain what it was. It was because she had been literally elbows deep in the Flamingo LSS. And it like, she was like, I've cleaned myself and these pipes. And for like 2 weeks, it smelled like Flamingo.
She warned me when I first started working here. She's like, if you go in Flamingo, like, you're going to smell like Flamingo. And that's the first thing I did was I lanced those sand filters. So I'm in there. It's like, oh, like, that was gross. Flamingos are gross.
Flamingos are gross. That is very
Love
true.
them, but they're gross.
Awesome. Well, Lily, thanks for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, so there you have it, folks. Lily Reavis talking about the life support systems at the Greensboro Science Center. Always a good time to be down at Greensboro, and always grateful that there are people there supporting life with systems. I didn't really listen to the interview. No, I'm kidding. That was awesome. I had a really good time with that, and I hope you all learned a lot from that one. So, don't forget to make sure that you are back here on Friday for Zoo News. And before I go, I'm just going to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, and Kevin Williams. And remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.